Mr. Barron.
This weekend, my wife and I went to Vail. So we're the largest investor in Vail, and in 2006, bought this apartment and bought two apartments together, put them raw, and my wife wouldn't let me build it out. She said, you're not skiing enough. What are you doing this for? And so ultimately, it's a penthouse, ski in, ski out on the mountain. It's an unbelievable apartment. Anyway, I was cement for all this time, so we went out there, and finally 2 years ago, I said, I'm building this thing. I don't care. I'm building this thing for my children, grandchildren. So we went out there, looked at it, came out great. And flying back last night, I'm on the plane, and my grandson, who is 3.5 years old, calls, and he wants to talk to Papa, and he wants to ask me to bring him to a launch. He's 3.5 years old. He wants to bring him to a launch, to a SpaceX launch. Unbelievable. So anyway,
well, Ron, what I would like to do is I would like to introduce you. We've got 25 people, I think, on the line right now, and I want to first thank you. I was just telling Liz, it's been about 12, 13 months since we've talked. I don't take this lightly that you will get on a phone call and talk to my clients. You're a very busy man, but about 12 months ago, we were on the phone, and you said, Ronnie, I'll help you out. You got some clients right now that are questioning our investment in Tesla, and Tesla was $103 a share. And I'll never forget, you said, be patient. This is a wonderful buying opportunity. With our portfolio, we can add to Tesla. We can be, and I know this, I believe in you so much, that we're overweighted about 60% in our concentrated equity portfolio, which Mike, Paul, and I run. But that's a tribute to you. I was fortunate enough to meet you in 2017, and you said, Ronnie, I know you're a big investor in Apple, but you need to look at Tesla and Elon Musk. And I had no idea your involvement with Elon. I had no idea how you would change my life, but you're, as far as Wall Street goes, you're my legend, and Wall Street calls you a legend. So that's pretty awesome. We're up 25 to 30 times on our investment from 2017. I know you're up a lot more than that, but you've created for our staff and our company a lot of multimillionaires. This morning, I was just telling Liz before you jumped on the line that I've had, I don't know, probably 40 text messages, 400. Ronnie, I can't believe this. Ronnie, you're changing our life, my grandkids, so on. Liz, when we ask for help, you're the first to get a hold of Ron. I'll just share with you real briefly, and then I'll let Ron go. But it was Tesla, then it became SpaceX, which I got involved in personally about 3 or 4 years ago. Then it was XAI. We've got some clients on the phone right now that are in XAI. And then, of course, what we're hoping for someday, because of you, Mr. Barron, is X. And I think in the next 2 or 3 years, probably X goes public. But with that, this is a great honor to thank you for making our clients happy. I will share with you, last thing I'll share with you, in 2017, my partner Mike said, Ronnie, I think we should start a concentrated equity portfolio so you can actually be audited on our performance. And Ron, I think you'll be proud of this because you're a big influence in this portfolio. Since 2017 to now this was 2 days ago. We haven't closed out the year, so I don't want to jinx it, but we've compounded at 35.8% each and every year for the last 8 years. And I will put that record up against anybody.
That's crazy. Wow.
So Mr. Barron, thank you. The floor is yours, and Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, and guys, Ron Barron.
Thank you for the generous introduction. Really appreciate the relationship that we have in your business. Ron Taylor, is this the Ron Taylor who used to be from Dubai?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Good. My wife just walked in.
You don't have to be zoned?
No, they just do the stuff and then they.
Did you do the blood test?
Yeah.
No, the blood. No.
Oh, I forgot the blood test. I'll get later.
No.
Dude, I'm on a call.
We got to keep you healthy.
Silly boy.
I forgot the blood test. Like,
Judy, I'll make sure he does it afterwards.
Thank you so much.
This is why she says, you can work at home. I can't work at home. Okay, so 2010, Elon was going public with Tesla. I met him. I thought it was unlikely he'd be successful. I hoped he would be. And we didn't invest. And then 2000, took him 4 years. Visited him regularly, talked to him regularly, visited him a few times, spoke with him regularly. 2016, he was doing 2,000 cars a year in 2010, and he told me he was going to do 20 million. So 2,000, 20 million, and it didn't seem that logical. And 2016, he's making the S cars, and sales are going up dramatically. And so I meet him. And 2014 to 16 rather is when we invested, and we invested a total of $400 million, and we made about $5.5 billion so far. And I think we sold about a quarter of our stock 3 years ago at a price of $220 a share. It's now 400, but it was level for 3 years because they weren't growing because they were investing in their business. And I think we're going to make 4 or 5 times their money more in Tesla over the next 10 years. And Elon thinks long term that we're going to make dramatically more than that. Right now, the company's valued for about $1.2 trillion, $1.1 trillion. And I'm thinking it'd be worth $4 or $5 trillion in 10 years. And he thinks that long term, he said this publicly, that he thinks with robotics, it's going to be in AI, it's going to be worth 30 trillion. So I think he's going to be the first trillionaire, and then he's going to be the first multiple trillionaire. And who knows what he's going to do with all his money ultimately, but it's pretty good humanity, I believe. 2016, 2017, we've been studying SpaceX all along. And 2017, we began to invest in SpaceX. And between 2017 and now, we've invested about $1 billion, a little bit over $1 billion, and it's now worth somewhere around 3 trillion, 3 billion, trillion. So we invested $1 billion. It's now worth about 3 billion, and it's going to be repriced, or it has been repriced up about. I'm not supposed to say, but I mean.
You're comfortable. Say it.
Pricing is supposed to take place tonight, and it's going to be up dramatically from where it was, yesterday, the day before, or whatever it was. But I mean, it's going to be up dramatically, and so I've been thinking that the rumors are that it could be priced at $350 billion. The last pricing 6 months ago was $212 billion. And I was thinking that it would be $400 billion in 2027 and $600 billion in 2030. Texas teachers thought that I was, very low, and they thought it was going to be worth $1 trillion in 2030. And then I thought that in the 2030s, by 2040, we're at 5 times again. So I was thinking somewhere around 15 times your money over the next, say, 15 years. And Elon, and therefore I thought that it'd be worth ultimately $3 trillion in 2040. And Elon thinks it's going to be worth $10 trillion. So I'm thinking 12, 15 times. He's thinking, a multiple of that. As far as Tesla, I just mentioned where we thought that he thinks it's going to be worth ultimately if the robotics prove out. By the way, it's really bizarre when you go out to Palo Alto and you see the robots walking around 7 feet tall, and 20 of them, 25 of them are now working in factories, in their factory, and he thinks everyone's going to have robots. And then when they run out of charge, they walk over to a charging station, hang themselves up, charge themselves, and then go around again. And they, human-like, and he's looking, he's describing how the hands operate, and it's really dystopian. But anyway, to SpaceX. So we started investing in SpaceX And we've invested, as I said, about $1 billion. It's now worth $3 trillion, and it's probably going to be worth $5 trillion today or something. And the idea that we have here is that the competitive advantage that's been created here is be able to use the rockets over and over and over again. So it's a very low cost of space. Everyone else who wants to get to space in a rocket, they use it one time and they throw it at the rocket. It costs $100, $200 million for a rocket. So it's extraordinarily expensive to launch satellites with other people. What we do is that we use the rockets over and over again. With a Falcon 9, it's partially reusable. And what they can do is they're making, with Falcon 9, it costs about $20 million to get to space compared to $100 or $200 million for everyone else. And with a new Starship, which is going to be completely reusable, it's going to be massively larger than any rocket that's ever been launched in Saturn and anyone on our planet. And we think that as a result, the cost of getting to space will be less than $10 million, probably $6 million, and ultimately it's going to cost $2 or $2.5 million. That was costing 100, 200. So no one else has been able to accomplish this that we have. So competitive advantage is getting to space and reusing the rockets over and over again. China believes that they'll be able to accomplish this by 2030. We'll see, but they're a competitor of us, but no one else has been successful. And we bring competitors to orbit instead of just ourselves. But because of cheap ability to get to space, what has taken place is that we are able to have the ability to start another business called Starlink. And Starlink customers are growing very rapidly, and that is communications throughout the entire planet. Every square inch of the planet will ultimately be covered. And we launch right now about 90%. SpaceX launches about 90% of mass to orbit is coming from SpaceX. Every country, every other business in the aggregate launches 10%, we launch 90. And as soon as we get Starship working properly, and it's it's been de-risked, and we're making huge progress there. And I think that when that happens, Elon believes it's going to be, instead of 90% of mass to orbit, it's going to be close to 197, 98% of what it's going to get to orbit. We have a partnership called Baron X, and most people, when they have partnerships, they charge 2 and 20, 3 and 30, and because it's such an attractive investment, but our Baron X, what we charge is a 1% management fee, no carried interest. And as soon as it gets to be public, which we think is going to be 3 or 4 years from now, and I think that it's going to be, or 5 years, and I think it's going to be the hottest IPO that's ever been. When that happens, instead of having an 8-year lockup, the lockup goes to 1 year, and instead of charging a 1% management fee, we'll charge a 0.5% management fee, and give people instant liquidity if they want it, and they can take their shares and sell them if they want to. Or we think that the opportunities are very great for the next 10 years. And so we would recommend people continue to hold. And if they continue to hold, they will have quarterly liquidity, and they'll pay us a 0.5% management fee, no other, no carried interest as well. And you'll be married, managed, the portfolio will be managed pari passu to our personal investments, our proprietary investments as well. So you can have your money managed by us in that stock continuing, or you can get it back, and we would charge you, if you stay with us, a 0.5%. The investment that we have of the $3 billion now, on the way to $5 billion shortly, a large percentage is either mine and my family's a proprietary directly or indirectly. It represents about $600 million now. When it gets repriced, it'll be $1 billion. So basically, my interests are parallel, aligned with the interests of our clients.
You've got skin in, Ron, you've got skin in the game.
And the same thing for Tesla. where Tesla, I think we own about 17.5 million shares, and about 4.5 million shares of that is mine, either directly or attributed to me because of the ownership I have in our mutual funds and partnerships. So I'm along with everyone else. Competitive advantage to SpaceX has, oh yeah, so everyone in SpaceX, every employee there happens to also be an investor in SpaceX, every single one. And if you're working on the line or you're an engineer and you're making $200,000 or $300,000 a year, then all of a sudden every year they go to you and they say, hey, listen, Ron, you're this great engineer, you're making $200,000 or $300,000 a year, terrific salary. You could probably make a little bit more elsewhere, but that's what you're making for us. But you're now worth $5 or $10 million. Don't you think it might be a good idea for you to sell some shares that you own to put the money in the bank and make your family secure? So that's where the stock is coming from. So ordinarily, starting in 2017, we've been the largest purchaser, or one of the very largest purchasers on each one of these offerings. They have two ordinarily of $750 million per offering per year. And that's, now in this offering, demand is so great, it's going to be about $1 billion. But of the $1 billion, Elon, who owns 44% of this company, it's 44% of this company. Let's argue that the $350 billion value is right. He owns 44% of it. And of the $1 billion that they're tendering for from employees right now, Elon says, this is the best investment I've ever seen. And I'm buying back $500 million of that for the company because I don't want to be diluted. He owns 40% and he doesn't want to be diluted. So demand. So there's $500 million on this offering that's been available. On the last offering, there was $750 million, and he bought $250 million back, and that left $500 million for other people. And the only people who were contacted, there's no investment banker involved, no fees, and they just contact people who are already existing shareholders to see if they want to add or sell. And there's they also contact people who have expressed an interest in investing in SpaceX, but it's generally way oversubscribed. And so for the $500 million that they were doing on the last offering, they were oversubscribed in 24 hours with no investment banker. They had $5.8 billion bid in for $500 million. On the offering they're doing, I guess the closing is going to be sometime in probably paid for probably in mid-January, and the closing is going to be very shortly. And hasn't been precise date announced yet, but it's my understanding that for the $1 billion, and Elon's buying back $500 million, but the other $500 million in, I think they said in, they went through 1/3 of the people who had expressed an interest, and they had $6 billion bid with 1/3 of the people that they call it. So it's hard to buy stock very easily. And in fact, we didn't get very much this time, although it's likely that over the next 6 months, as other partnerships that have been investor in this entity, it's likely that for a long time, some of them, they get paid only when they realize profits. And so they want to sell. And so periodically they come up with other people who want to sell, and when that happens, they call us, because each one of these offerings, I've been requesting $250 million. On one 2 times ago, I got $250 million. GIC, which is Singapore, they got $250. Fidelity got $190, and one of the directors got $180 million. And when I learned that Fidelity, that GIC had gotten $250, I said, really, that's not very fair. I mean, how come, I do all this work, how come they got as much as I got? How about, can I get $250 million, $255 million? They were on, you got $250, leave me alone.
Did we lose him?
I think,
Okay.
oh, there it is.
Yeah.
All right, so anyway, so I regard the business at SpaceX is a launch. There's two businesses. One of them is launch, and one of them is the communications right now. And so SpaceX, the competitive advantages are that you reuse the rockets. I consider this to be the railroad to space. The cost to get to space, as I mentioned before, is dramatically less than everyone else's. Their culture is to re-engineer. Everyone else wants to do everything as expensively as they can, take as long as they can. They get contracts in every congressional jurisdiction in the country. So therefore, the congressmen who vote on where the awards should be granted have something to go back to their constituents and say, we got this contract in this market. So it's very, very expensive for everyone else to do things and takes very long. And the longer it takes, the more expensive. The person who's the prime contractor gets a contract in general cost plus, which means that all the costs that incur are paid by the government, and they get the prime contractor 12% off the top as pure profit. This is what Elon is in the government. This trying to eliminate these cost plus contracts. That's one thing trying to do. So whether your politics are in favor of the president-elect or not, one thing you should be very encouraged about is that the president-elect has chosen one of the, probably the best engineer on the planet and one of the best businessmen, probably the best businessman on the planet too, who I believe is going to figure out how to make our government more efficient. I was just reading an article over the weekend that talks about this. President Kennedy, when I was young, had the best and the brightest, and President Roosevelt had the Manhattan Project, and so this is similar to, in consequence, to what those presidents have been trying to do. Amazing article, but they're getting the best and the brightest from Silicon Valley, all these wealthy people. And I was reading in the article, Elon has been contacting all these executives of companies saying, what is the government doing to make it difficult for you to do business? Tell me your problems. I want to see if I can help you with them. And to give you one example of a problem that we've had with SpaceX, just one example. So he doesn't get along with Biden, and Biden tries to harass him whenever he can. And he launches, we're now up to 130 or 140 launches a year, and you don't even read about it in the paper anymore. When I read about it when I was young, man, it was everywhere. When something happened like this, it was everywhere.
Sure was.
And even my grandson, who's 3.5, is aware of this now. But I mean, the idea is that when you're thinking about the potential for rocketry, we have to launch frequently, and so we're launching in Texas, and we had 2 rockets on the launch pad. SpaceX had 2 rockets on the launch pad, and they were there for 2 weeks, and I had to get approval from Fish and Wildlife, and Fish and Wildlife was worried about the turtles or the birds, and so it took 2 weeks to get approval. You have to launch every single day, once, twice, 3 times. And here we had Fish and Wildlife, delayed them for 2 weeks before they got the appropriate permits. So basically, you have to make things more efficient and get rid of regulations that are burdensome or unable to be complied with for businesses to operate properly. So our culture, SpaceX culture, is to drive down cost of everything they do. Everything they want to do better, cheaper, faster. That's the idea. On our aerospace industry, what they do is the opposite. They try to make things cost more and take longer to accomplish. So we got the cost of our antennas down from $1,200 to $500 to $400 per. So you want to set it up. And we were out in Vail, and
you're talking regarding Starlink. Regarding Starlink.
Starlink, yes.
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah, that's what you're talking about. Yeah.
So one of the guys who's looking at our project is saying, Ron, look at.
Go to Libby.
Look at the roof in the distance. You see, that's your antenna that you have up there, and all those other antennas. There's 6 or 7 or 8 of them right now. That's all after you put yours up. So it just is, it's multiplying rapid pace. So antennas are going down in price. The engines have gone down in price from 2 million to 1 million to 250,000 was the goal. But now the engines have to have a redesign in order to break them much lower than that. But everything is about getting things cheaper. The broadband satellites. So the big opportunity for satellites. So the low cost of space. That's what we do with SpaceX, the launch. The Starlink. That's the backbone satellite broadband for the whole entire planet. Everyone's going to have this, and about 8 billion people on the planet. 30% of them don't have broadband. If you want to have equal distribution of wealth or better distribution of wealth, people need to be educated. The way you're going to be educated is because you got to have the internet. If you don't have the internet, that's not going to happen. So Starlink, in order for the projections that I'm making to make triple or double by 2030, mean that 50 million people will be connected. 50 million, there happen to be 2.5 billion that don't have connections, just to give you a sense of the opportunity. In 2021, so we've been investing since 2017, didn't have any satellites then, and they just, the rockets had just become reusable. So in 2021, we had 1,800 satellites, 2022, 3,300, 2023, 5,400. This year, there will be about 6,000, I guess. And the goal is 15 to 20,000. Geostationary satellites cost hundreds of millions of dollars, can be $1 billion. Starships, greater capacity, 10 times the thrust, lower capacity per MBS to get to space. And we get 150 tons of launch compared to, I don't have here, 14 tons of launch for Falcon 9. So a Starship is 10 times greater capacity, 150 tons of launch. Falcon 9, which is what we're using right now, is 14 tons of launch. Country landing rights. In order to operate in a country, the country has to give you permission. And in 2021, no countries had given us permission to operate there. Now, by the way, the reason there is a Ukraine is because of Elon Musk.
Sure is.
That he was attacked by
Starlink.
Russia, Ukraine. Zelensky called him up and said, my communication was cut off from my troops, can you help? And in 24 hours or 48 hours, they turned on the internet over, and turned on Starlink over Ukraine. And Elon, in the next couple of weeks, gave them thousands of antennas. And that's the reason they were able to survive, defend themselves. So other countries that don't have the internet, it would take years oftentimes to get the political will to have it done, because you're hurting some communications companies already in those countries. So in the past, it took a long time. Now it's very hard for people living in a country when they see that, oh my God, Ukraine got it in 48 hours and it takes us 2 years, seriously? Mm-hmm. So that's actually been a help for us to be able to get into countries sooner. In 2021, 0 countries, 2022, 53, 23, 87. This year we're going to Southeast Asia, Africa, Thailand, India, Fiji. So I think there were probably something over 100 now, 110, 115, maybe go to 120, 130. So you're going to more and more countries. Starlink subscribers, in 2020 there was 0, of course, no satellites. 21, 100,000 residential customers, 0 enterprise. 22, 1 million, $1.25 billion annual revenues from residential, 700 million from enterprise. 2023, 2.5 million customers, 24, 5 million. Next year, 8 million, 26, 13, 27, 20, 28, 30, and 2030, 50 million customers. So 50 million customers out of 2.5 billion potential. Telco coverage. We are negotiating right now, I think, with 40 telcos around the world. The idea is that we're going to be able to enhance their ability to operate, to provide services for their clients, as well as have direct customers ourselves. And we think that ultimately the opportunity here is $500 trillion annual revenues, and Elon thinks he's going to get 50% of those revenues, 50. And that's probably 70–80% profit margin. So that's what you're paying $350 billion for today. Potential for having hundreds of billions of dollars of annual revenues, and with 80%, 70% profit margin. Direct to device, that's telcos. You can be carrying your cell phone and you can talk directly through satellite. Rural broadband, the government proposed a $44 billion rural broadband entitlement enablement program. There was an article in the Wall Street Journal this past summer that talked about how in Nevada, in the desert, they wanted to have connections to homes that were remote. And in order to get connections, you need to spend $16,000 a mile to run wire in the ground. And the government chose to do that instead of buying $500 antennas.
Of course
and so
they
they spent something like $44 billion. I'm sorry, they spent $53,000 a home as opposed to spending $500 for an antenna. Antenna, plug it in, points at the sky, it works, the internet, or you can spend $53,000 a home. And one of the telco executives in the United States came to visit me about a year ago, and he had heard that we were selling $50 million on behalf of one of the partnerships that was being liquidated or selling part of their investments, and said he was interested in participating. And so he wanted to talk to me about it, and he came and we spoke for, I guess, a couple hours. It was a Thursday. And he said, yeah, I'm interested. I'd like to buy $5 or $10 million for my children. I said, okay. He said, can you call me tomorrow? And I said, well, I can't call you tomorrow because my wife, we just heard a couple times already, said, you can't talk on Fridays when you're off, when you're supposed to be with me. And so I told him I'll call him on Monday. And so I called him back on Monday. He says, Ron, I've changed my mind. I'd like to buy $20 or $25 million instead of the 5 or 10 that I told you. And I said, well, okay, but my price to you for doing this is isn't this a competitor to you? Why are you doing this? And I said, well, for example, I cover the whole country, and if I'm in Wyoming and I have a big ranch and I don't need a lot of capacity, and I have a small town where I do need capacity, all I do is call SpaceX, and I don't have to launch more satellites. All they got to do is they can give me capacity with software. And then if I don't do it, and my competitor does do it, I'll lose the customer to the competitor, just like airlines. If airline gets it, if United gets it, which they're going to do, and they're going to run it off 1,600 airplanes, and the competitor Delta doesn't have it, then you're going to fly, if you go from coast to coast, you're going to fly with United until Delta has it.
That's right.
And so Delta forced to get it also, or Hawaiian, everyone.
Well, Ron, would you agree this administration is going to be much more friendly towards Elon? I would think that the last 4 years, it seems like every time he turned right, they were trying to force him to go left. And so I can't help but thinking that with all the regulations that he's fought, that the next 4 years are going to be a little bit more friendly for Mr. Musk and some of his companies.
There's no question about that. In fact, I said that regardless of politics, for all my friends, that this happens to be the most friendly I could imagine. Right? So SpaceX and Tesla and all these other companies, they're the biggest beneficiaries of having a government that's considering what things cost instead of just jobs programs, and considering that they're going to try not to get in the way of businesses, and we're the business that benefits the most from that, I think. So
it's hard to believe that Tesla wasn't invited to the EV summit. Yeah,
amazing. Yeah, amazing.
How's that even possible?
Mary Barra, who did 600 cars in a quarter or something like that, and we did 130,000 or 250,000. Crazy. It's just because the United Auto Workers did not want Elon Musk in the White House, so therefore they just invited him. So anyway, Enterprise is a big deal. Getting Starlink to every child in the world is a big deal. Private jets is a big deal. Maritime, it's $5 billion a year potential offshore rigging. Starshield. So the government spends $20 billion a year on defending our country from attack from others, and it's never been more important. And we were doing $250 million revenues in 22 with something called Starshield. When I was out there last year, the year before, this massive, capsule. And I said, what's that? Well, that's for Starshield. What's in it? We can't talk about that. But they're building satellites for the government, and the government's building their own satellites, and we're launching them. And presumably, we're operating a system for the government. And $250 million is the cost in 2022, $450 in 23. This year, my guess is over $1.5 billion, but it's probably $2 to $3 billion a year ongoing. And U.S. Defense spends $20 billion a year. I'm imagining a good part of that we can go for.
Ron, I've got a couple of questions for you, because I'm not sure if you know this, but there's a lot of guys on the line that were able to invest in XAI. We're looking forward to possibly the opportunity in the next 2 or 3 years if Elon takes X public, and we can't thank you enough for those opportunities. Can you address a little bit? We'd love to get your take on Tesla just briefly. I know you're not, price target, but I'm seeing some numbers on X that 2,500, 5,000. I believe personally, for everybody that's on the phone, that we'll see $1,000 a share on Tesla within the next 18 months. Can you address a little bit, because we're going to have an opportunity, I believe, hopefully through you, to have another round of funding for XAI. Could you talk a little bit about XAI, and then possibly, do you see an opportunity for our clients with X down the road?
So let me do two more seconds on this one, on SpaceX, and we'll go on to the others.
Okay.
SpaceX, the customers, manufacturing in orbit, building bases in the moon, mining asteroids, launch for commercial government customers, air cargo. That could be, we think, 25, 50 billion a year. Goldman Sachs thinks 100 a year, 100 billion. Transport to other planets, space tours, and Mars. Launches 31 in 21, 61 in 22, 95 in 23, 140 some on this year. 10 years they launch every single day. Launch backlog, $30 billion. Cash on hand, $7 billion. Starlink subscription revenue, strong balance sheet, no debt, buying in their own stock. IPO Starlink, 2027. Revenues for SpaceX, $1.7 billion in 20, $2.3 billion in 21, $4 billion in 22, $8 billion in 23, $12 billion this year, $25 billion in 27, $50 billion in 30. That's it for SpaceX.
Starlink, you're saying Starlink in 2027, you think? You're calling for Starlink?
I thought originally Starlink was likely. Now they've been talking more along the lines of making the whole company. So if it was Starlink going public, it would probably be 27, 28. If it's the whole company, it's probably 28, 29, 30, something like that. And of course, at that point, it's gonna be the hottest thing going. I mean, my goodness, you read in the New York Times about how everyone wants to invest in it and nobody can get it. You can actually get it, if you look at Barron Partners Fund, which happens to be the #1 mutual fund in the United States since 2003. I'm going to bring it back to 1992, #1 out of 2000.
Yep.
And then you go back to 1992.
Thank you. Our clients, thank you.
Anyway, $10,000, the index in 19 rapid pace, but Microsoft was an investor in the other. And the bottom line of it is that Microsoft invested with a $100 billion market cap in OpenAI, and they just did another offering at $157 billion market cap. Elon went out and he said, okay, I got to build massive compute in order to be competitive. And so he goes out and he starts quoting, and it turns out that people make them proposals without firm commitments, that with lots of caveats, that you can get it done in 3 or 4 or 5 years, and it costs $4 or $5 billion to get a data center, which is going to have 100,000 GPUs. To give you a sense of what that means, is that the data centers that are used to connect which is the hottest thing going in real estate. The data centers to connect to the internet, from space. From ground. Those data centers cost the largest one ever built is 25,000 CPUs, and the GPU, which is NVIDIA, is a multiple. A GPU is a multiple power of a CPU, and he wanted to build 100,000 GPUs, where the largest ever built was 25,000 CPUs. And the CPU business has been growing about 20% a year, but they're very low barriers to entry. These units can cost $300 or $400 million a piece, and get them up in about 6 months. So not real barriers to entry. And the returns on capital, because of the barriers to entry, even though demand is growing 20% a year, the returns on capital are somewhere around 8 or 9% a year compound, 8 or 9% a year initially. With Elon, he goes out and he gets all these quotes, and no one gives him anything satisfactory. We can get it done fast at a reasonable price. So it goes out there, and they go searching for a 1 million square foot warehouse, and they find these people who own warehouses that are obsolete, and just sitting there without sufficient power, but power connected. And he finds one in Memphis from a person who has 800,000 square foot warehouse. It used to be used for Electrolux, and is now just vacant, sitting vacant. And he goes out there and he acquires it, and he has 15, whatever the measure is for power, 15 megawatts of power, whatever the term is, and he needs 150. And there happened to be a facility across the street with gas power, so he hooks up to that, and it gets him to 100 units, and then he builds his own generators and is using it internally, so therefore he gets around other regulations, and he gets the power. So power is one of the barriers, number one. Number two is getting the approvals from the regulators. Number three is, it used to be you would be able to just build and get it done really fast. Now these centers cost $3 or $4 or $5 billion, and they ask you to put up $500 million for 3 or 4 years before you're getting a return on it. So it's capital, and then it's the number of employees, and then so it's all these barriers, and it takes everyone, and then the cost and getting people to do it. And people just don't. If you are a normal executive, there's incredible inertia, because if you try something new and it doesn't work, then you lose your chance for moving up a rank. And if it does work, it means you have to work that much harder. So it's incredible inertia from people who are making decisions about doing anything new. So therefore, new stuff doesn't get done. And so he gets it out there, and he raises capital. And the initial idea was to raise capital. I think it was a $15 billion pre-money capital raise, and it was going to raise $5 billion. And then demand was so strong that they raised it up to $18 billion, and they raised $7 billion, and they were way oversubscribed. And so the first valuation, which was 4 months ago, was for $25 billion. The other one is valued for $157 billion.
Wow.
And now, I guess Jensen from NVIDIA said that Elon did something in 19 days that no one else has been able to do
in 2 years.
In one less year.
Yeah.
And then in addition to that, he said that he was able to get his center built in, I think it was 100. And so Jensen said this was the most remarkable feat of engineering he's ever seen. And he said there's only one man on the planet who could accomplish this. Of course, we're never really sure what planet Elon's coming from, but he did it. And now he's raising capital for his second, he just raised capital for his second, to double the capacity, is 100,000. So he got it built in 3 months, 4 months.
90 days.
Now he's about to double capacity again. And he has all these applications they're working on. And so he thinks it's better than what's existing, or it certainly will be very shortly. And the other one's valued, now ours is valued for 50, and the other one's valued for 157. So, there seems to be a lot of room between those two valuations.
Will we get another opportunity sometime in 2025 on XAI?
I presume so.
Okay.
But
Thank you.
I presume so.
Thank you. I've got some clients that are interested, so
He wants to be 5 times as big in a very short period of time. So presumably he's going to need more capital.
Well, Ron, to get an hour of your time this time of year is pretty special. We look forward to it. Last night, I'll be very honest with you, I kept looking at the clock when I could get up and start getting ready for our call. I can't thank you enough for what you've done for me personally, my family, and most importantly, my clients. It's nice to get messages like we're getting. The last 4 years have been a little interesting. I think the next 4 years are going to more than make up for that. But
just one second here. I'm going to show you something. This is my 3.5-year-old who wants to go watch a space launch.
Hey, Ronnie's got a little bit more hair than you too.
That's a lot more hair.
Well, hey, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah to you, Ron. Liz, our firm owes you a lot of respect. You're the one that put us in touch with Ron. I never thought my life would turn out like this. You guys have taken us under your wing. When I tell people that I actually periodically have the ability to talk to Ron Barron, they think that's pretty special. I don't take this for granted. What a gift. Let's make this next 4 years the best we can. And like Ron said, this administration is going to be a lot more friendly towards Elon. There was a lot of times that I didn't know if we were going to hear that he was arrested or shut down, but I think those days are maybe over. So, Mr. Barron, thank you for changing my life and my client's life. And I look forward to hopefully getting a little piece of you again a year from now.
Thank you for the incredible compliments. I mean, you're way over the top on me.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not. We all know who you are. You can't hide from us. But thank you, Liz. We appreciate your time today.
Yes,
Thank you.
our pleasure. Yeah, thank you.
Thank
And
you,
Ron,
guys.
go get your blood test. We need you healthy.
Right.
Bye, guys.